In the northern reaches of the ancient forest of Lira, where the mist clung to the roots like hungry ghosts and the wind whispered secrets only the wild could understand, there lived a hunter unlike any other, Cale Thorn, known to some as the Silent Arrow. Cale was born under the hunter's moon, a blood-red sphere that rose high over the mountains every decade. The village elders whispered that those born under such a sign were touched by the old spirits, not blessed, but claimed. His mother died in childbirth, and his father, a stoic tracker who spoke more to wolves than to men, raised Cale in the shadows of the pines and the deep silence of snow. From his earliest days, Cale moved with an uncanny stillness. At 5, he could mimic the hoot of an owl with such perfection that it startled the birds themselves. By 10, he could track a wounded deer across granite. And at 12, he brought down his first shadow cat, not with a spear, but with a stone, flung so precisely it shattered the predator's skull. But Cale did not hunt for glory. He hunted to know the rhythm of life and death, to listen to the earth's breathing. He learned to read the twitch of a squirrel's tail, the subtle shift in the air when wolves circled unseen, and the distant crack of branches that warned of a bear's patience turning into hunger. When Cale turned 17, a storm came unlike any the mountains had seen in centuries. Trees were torn from the ground like saplings, rivers overflowed their banks, and strange creatures came down from the high peaks, not beasts, but tainted things, twisted by something ancient and wrong. They moved on all fours but had the eyes of men. They didn't bleed red. Villagers called them the Hollow Ones. And they hunted not for food, but for silence, wiping out entire camps in the night, leaving only scorched stone and cold ashes. Cale was the first to track one and return alive. He spoke little of what he saw, but the elders noted his eyes were sharper, colder afterward. He began crafting his arrows differently, dipping the tips in a blend of frost herb and ghost root, poisons from forgotten lore. He fletched his shafts with feathers from the midnight hawk, a bird so elusive even legends called it imaginary. Word spread beyond Lira. Mercenaries came offering gold, kings sent envoys promising land and title, but Cale turned them all away. He would not hunt for coin, nor wear the chains of a court. Instead, he took on an apprentice. Lira was a wild-spirited girl who had once tried to steal a loaf of bread from Cale's campfire. Rather than punish her, he handed her a bow and asked if she knew how to use it. She didn't. But her grip was steady, and her eyes followed the trees as if she too could hear them whisper. She stayed. Together, they ranged farther than any hunter dared. Through the fog-choked Valley of Teeth, over the icebound plateau, into the deadwood where no birds sang. They tracked the Hollow Ones to their source, a shattered temple beneath the earth, where a black root pulsed like a heart, weeping tar into the stone. Cale knew what it was, an old god, forgotten by men but still dreaming. A thing that twisted life into mockeries. He made a choice. In the stillness before dawn, Cale handed Lira his bow, the one carved from the rib of a forest giant, strung with the sinew of a sky stag. "This belongs to the forest now," he said. "And so do I." Before she could protest, he vanished into the dark, descending into the root-choked abyss. The ground shook. Trees wept sap that steamed like blood in the cold. For 3 days, thunder boomed beneath the soil. Then silence. Lira waited a week. Then she lit the funeral pyre, as Cale had taught her. She spoke no words, only loosed a single arrow into the sky, the final salute of the Silent Arrow. Years passed. Now the forest knows her name. Lira Thorn, the huntress of flame. She wears a cloak of raven feathers and walks with a limp earned fighting beasts her master warned her never to face. But in her eyes the wild still burns. And when she knocks an arrow to her bow, the forest holds its breath. Some say Cale still walks the deep woods, a ghost with wolf eyes and bloodless steps, keeping watch. Others believe he sleeps beneath the temple still, holding the old god down with will and bone. But Lira knows the truth. Because some nights, when the wind carries the scent of pine and frost, she hears the twang of a bowstring in the distance, so soft, so perfect, and a whisper that says, "The hunt never ends." 10 winters had passed since Cale Thorn vanished into the temple beneath the roots. In that time, Lira had become legend. Where once she followed in Kale's shadow, now she was the one whispered about by firelight, the flame-eyed huntress who could kill a direwolf with a single shot, the one who ventured into the Foglands and returned with black blood on her hands and no words to spare. But legends come at a cost. The Hollow Ones had not died with the old god. They had splintered, scattered into the corners of the world. And something worse stirred, something deeper. Lira knew it the moment she found the first bone tree. It stood alone in the forest's oldest quarter, a place where light never reached and birds avoided like a curse. The tree's bark was pale, almost translucent, and its leaves were dry scraps of skin. From its branches hung spines, skulls, and jawbones, not just animal remains, but human ones. And at its roots the soil bled. Lira knelt and touched it. The earth hissed and spat black worms. This wasn't a shrine. It was a seed. A new god was growing. Lira returned to the village of Hollowmere, one of the few mountain settlements still standing. She brought warnings, samples of the bleeding soil, and drawings of the bone tree. The elders listened in silence, their faces like stone. When she finished, the head elder, Mara, revealed the truth Lira was never meant to know. Kale was not the first, she said. There have been others, chosen by the forest, warriors marked by the hunter's moon. Every few generations, the wild selects one to stand against the dark. But none have returned. Kale had only delayed the corruption, not destroyed it. The cycle was beginning again. And now, it was Lyra's turn. To find the source, Lira needed to go farther than she'd ever dared, into the Bone Grove, a forbidden land beyond the icebound plateau, hidden even from maps. According to legend, it was a place where spirits fed on memory, where time looped like a noose and the trees whispered your name before you spoke it. She did not go alone. 3 joined her. Tarn, a scarred mercenary who claimed he once saw Kale and lived. He carried 2 short blades and a flask of mountain firewater, and feared nothing but silence. Elenia, a spirit-touched druid whose eyes were blind but glowed with silver fire. She spoke to plants and dreamed in riddles. Bram, a mute boy no older than 10, found wandering the ruins of a burned-out village. He never spoke, but wherever he went, Hollow Ones withered into ash. Together, they traveled through storm and stone, over frost-choked ridges and across valleys teeming with half-formed beasts. They saw horrors, wolves with men's teeth, trees that bled when cut, a river that whispered, "Turn back," with every ripple. They pressed on. In the grove, the air pulsed like breath. The trees leaned inward, trapping the light, and the bones hanging from their branches moved when no wind blew. The group made camp inside a ring of standing stones. Elenia read the grooves in the rock and whispered a single truth. This place remembers Kale. That night, Lira dreamed of him. But he was not as she remembered. His face was hollowed, stretched thin by something vast and cold. His eyes glowed with the same silver fire as Elenia's, but in his was sorrow. He spoke no words, only handed her a black arrow with a shaft of ironwood and a head carved from obsidian. When she woke, it lay in her hand. The grove had a heart. It was a crater, smooth, vast, and filled with ash. At its center something pulsed. Not a root this time, but a figure, a hollow one, taller, more formed, cloaked in robes of stretched skin. It had no face, only a smooth mask made from many, hundreds of faces, melded into one. It raised a staff carved from bones and spoke in Kale's voice. You left me. Lira stepped forward. You chose this. The creature tilted its head. No. I became this. To keep the dark down. But the forest lies. It feeds what it claims to fight. And then it attacked. The battle was chaos. Tarn was impaled saving Bram. Elenia summoned roots to bind the creature, but its scream turned them to dust. Bram, untouched by the Hollow One's poison, walked into the ash and pressed his small hand to its chest. And it stopped. The creature staggered. It looked at Lira, truly looked, and in that moment she saw Kale. Just for a breath. A flicker of the man who taught her to track, to shoot, to listen. She knocked the black arrow. It whispered as it flew, not with words, but with wind and grief and fire. When it struck the hollow one's heart, the sky opened. Light returned. They buried Tarn beneath the hawthorn tree. Elenia wandered into the mist, and never came back.